Welcome to Mrs. Fitz Science Page. All right, today I want to talk to you about something that's on all of our minds, and because I can't do any kind of like fancy schmancy, graphics or anything, I'm just using whiteboards. So here you go. Today we're going to talk about the coronavirus. Okay, it's on all of our minds. It's present in our lives, and I feel like if you don't use education to, for your everyday life, then what's the point, right? So let's discuss viruses and let's discuss what they actually are. And there's a video that I'm going to put out before this called Macromolecules. I would highly suggest that you watch that one first. But if not, just bear with me. You can go back and watch that one later. So first of all, I've been doing lots of research on the coronavirus, and I wanted to pass along what I have found to you. We talked about research in the very beginning of the year, but I want to kind of reiterate what research means. Research is to research something means to investigate and to gather information, right? You could write an entire book just by researching what other people have found and discovered. I can't stress this enough. Not everything that you read on the internet is true. We all know this. But credible, accurate, and unbiased resources are key. So what does unbiased mean? Unbiased means basically that the people giving you the information that you're reading, they don't have any kind of motive behind what they're telling you. So they don't have any reason to lie, basically. So if you're unbiased, that means that you are most likely telling the truth because you are less likely to be distorting the information, right? Resources. What are resources? So a resource can be anything. A resource can be a person. A resource can be a book. It can be a website. A resource is just something that you gather information from, right? So if a resource is credible, that means that it has proven to be credible over time, and it has proven to be unbiased. So in this case, for researching the coronavirus, I have used the following resources. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, based in Atlanta, Georgia. National Institute of Health, or the NIH, the Washington Post, Medical News Today, the Journal of Cell Science, the Atlantic, and National Geographic. Some of these are government organizations. Some of them are peer-reviewed journals. Peer-reviewed means that other scientists in the field have to review the publication before it is submitted. So if you're reading it, that means that other scientists in the field have studied it and have approved it, basically. Okay. So before I talk about the coronavirus, I just want to give you like an overview of living things, right? So where do viruses fit in? Viruses are really weird. And for a long time, they have not been considered living things. They're still not really considered living things because they don't follow the cell theory. The cell theory says that all living things must be made out of cells. All cells must come from pre-existing cells, yada, 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 right? And the cells has to have their own metabolism and their own functions, and they have to basically be self-sufficient. But viruses don't really fit in with any of that. I mean, they definitely proliferate, they reproduce, they have their own genetic material, but they don't do any of the work themselves. What they end up doing is they hijack a cell to do the work for them. Okay, so let's just talk about what are the different kind of groups of living things, right? So, groups of living things. I'm going to just put viruses I'm just going to put viruses here. Okay? Let's just put a question mark. I don't know. I've always kind of, my opinion, has been if something has its own genetic material and it reproduces, it's kind of living, but it's not really considered a living thing. So I'm just going to put a question mark. Okay. Next, bacteria. Okay. I'm just going to cover some basic illnesses that are caused by bacteria, so we can kind of distinguish between bacteria and viruses. Animals. That's us, right? Okay. Plants. Fungi. Kind of like plants, but not. And there's one more, but I think a lot of people forget they exist. They do cause some diseases. They're called protists. You can't see many of them with your naked eye. I think there's only a few, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 that you can see with your eyes, but they're tiny, 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 tiny. Some common illnesses that are caused by protists are, let me just go over these. We're going to talk about, I'm going to go in detail on viruses and bacteria, but the rest of them I'm not really going to go into any detail on. But diseases that are caused by animals. Some diseases that are caused by animals are, if you have a dog, parvo, wait, not parvo, sorry, scratch that. Roundworms. Okay. Tapeworms. And heartworms. A lot of these can a lot of dogs can get these. These are common illnesses caused by animals. These are in the animal kingdom. Okay. These all have their different phylums, right? So in kingdoms, actually, bacteria is a different kingdom than the rest of a lot of these. These are in a certain kingdom, prokaryotes versus eukaryotes, but we don't have to go into that much detail. But animals, roundworms, tapeworms, heartworms are all caused by animals. Plants don't really cause any diseases in humans. A lot of different things give diseases to plants, but plants, I mean, poison ivy is about the only thing, which I have a terrible poison ivy rash right here. I don't know if you can see. I'm very miserable right now. Fungi, some things that are caused by fungi. If you're an athlete, then you might be familiar with athlete's foot, caused by fungi. Another one is ringworm. I was a kid that ran around barefoot in the country, and I would get these really itchy rings on the bottom of my foot. That is ringworm. It is not a worm. It looks like a worm. It itches. It is actually a fungus. So if you run around barefoot in the grass and mud, you might get ringworm, right? Okay. One more is protists. Like I said, a lot of people forget they exist. 2 diseases caused by protists are Giardia and malaria. Okay, Giardia is what you get if you drink creek water. People say you will vomit if you drink creek water or mud or something like that. That's because there's a lot of protists in it and bacteria, and these will make you very, 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 very sick. And of course, malaria is spread through mosquitoes, right? So a lot of different things can be vectors or hosts of disease. Some of the ones that are really good hosts for other kinds of diseases are animals, plants, and fungi can be too. Okay, so these are like good hosts. So like other things like viruses, bacteria, protists like to infect these. Okay, these are kind of the more, you could think of them as like the more complex life forms, And these guys are just kind of like hitching a ride. Okay, so they are often used as we are often used as the target. Okay, so what? Let's discuss some common illnesses caused by bacteria. Okay, salmonella. If you ever eat raw cookie dough or raw cake mix, which I did tonight, they said that you can get salmonella from the eggs. I never have had salmonella in my life, and I feel like I'm immune to it because I've been eating cookie dough my entire life, and I don't care because it's so delicious. But maybe one day if I get food poisoning, I'm going to care. So salmonella is caused by bacteria found in raw eggs. E. coli, if you ever get food poisoning, which I haven't had, but I've heard it's miserable. You'll spend a whole day on the toilet and vomiting, so it's not pleasant at all. E. coli is often what you get when you get food poisoning from a restaurant, and sometimes salmonella too. Strep throat, a lot of us have been infected with strep throat. Okay, it's a type of bacteria caused by the Streptococcus bacteria. MRSA, it's been a big problem. MRSA is a very aggressive bacteria. It's hard to treat. Tuberculosis, a lot of coughing, pneumonia, fluid in the lungs, syphilis, commonly known sexually transmitted infection, and tetanus, which is a type of bacteria that lives in rust. That's why they say if you touch a rusty nail, then you might get tetanus. You have to have your shot every 10 years or whatever. So these are some different kinds of illnesses caused by bacteria. And I'm just showing you this so that you kind of have a idea of like where everything belongs, right? So viruses. Let's talk about viruses. Human illness is caused by viruses. Okay, HPV, that's a human papilloma virus, very common in the adult population. It's another sexually transmitted infection. HIV is very well known. HIV turns into AIDS. It turns into the disease AIDS, right? So the HIV virus can cause the disease AIDS. The flu or influenza virus, measles, chickenpox, rabies, Zika, and now SARS-CoV-2, which SARS-CoV-2, I don't know if you know this, but I found this in my research. I didn't realize SARS-CoV-2 is the virus, and the disease that it causes is COVID-19. So just like HIV causes AIDS, SARS-CoV-2 causes COVID-19. Okay. I want to kind of do like a general cells versus viruses. Okay. So if we look back at this chart here that we had. Okay, viruses, bacteria, animals, plants, protists, fungi. So all of these, like, except for the viruses, all these here are made out of cells. Okay, the one at the top, the viruses, are not made out of cells. That's why I said they're not considered living, right? And they don't have their own kind of metabolism and etc. So let me kind of show you what that means.